Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. This is the best audience we've had in our four forums so far, so thank you. We appreciate that. Well, my name is Ted Davis. If I've not met you, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of being the chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee for the Leavenworth-Lansing Chamber of Commerce, and we're proud to host this evening. Our purpose is to give the candidates for the Lansing School Board, USD 469, an opportunity to talk with you, the voters. So I want to thank, obviously, Lansing community for hosting us here at the center. I also want to thank my committee members, Kelly Butler and Jeanette Laby, for helping in the coordination and setup. I want to thank Eric Price from Rogue Creative, who is our videographer and has been serving us well for the last several years. And then thank Denny Davis, who is the timekeeper. I want to welcome our candidates, and I want to let you guys introduce yourself. Just introduce yourself by name. Later, I'll give you the introduction. You can do a more complete. But if we'll start here, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. I'm Amy McGeorge.
I'm Jackie Kennedy.
Jeff Bollin.
Good evening, Greg Penfield.
Amy Cawvey.
Good. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. I ask you that you please silence your phones. I also ask that you please be civil if we have disagreements among one another as participants, or certainly if you have disagreements with the candidates. Please be civil as you engage with one another. Our flow for this evening, we're going to start off with a 5-minute introduction by each of the candidates. Then we'll go to the chamber questions. I have 4 questions that I have for them. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer those questions. Then I'll open it up to the audience so you can ask your questions. And when you ask the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer your questions. When you ask your questions, I ask 2 things. Number 1, please ask questions that are directed towards the entire panel of candidates, not just simply to one candidate. And number 2, please make your introduction to the question very short. Get to the question so we give plenty of time to the candidates to answer those. If you ramble, I will be rude and I'll cut you off and ask you to get to the question. So please don't make me do that. And then we'll have a 1-minute closing for each of the candidates. Candidates, any questions of me before we get started? All right. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Just to make sure we understand the signage that you'll see, you'll get, again, whether it's the 5-minute introduction or the 2-minute, you'll see a 1-minute warning, 30-second, 10 seconds, and then stop. Okay. Any questions? All right, let's get started. Since the mic is down there, Amy, would you please start with your 5-minute introduction, please?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for hosting. Most of you know me here, I'm sure, but my name is Amy Cawvey, and we've been a Lansing resident since 2016. Me and my husband have been married, 34 years now, and he was active duty Air Force, and we ended up in Lansing after he retired, and this will be our forever home. We have 3 adult children and 1 wonderful grandson. Our youngest graduated from Lansing a couple of years ago. I spent most of my husband's career volunteering at different bases. I volunteered at all of our children's schools. I worked as a substitute teacher. I volunteered for different aspects in the morale, welfare, and recreation programs on the bases and for other spouse clubs, PTO, PTA, that sort of thing. I've seen a variety of different school districts across the country. But I've also seen education change, public education change drastically over, I would say, the last 25 years, especially the last 5 years. And I decided to run for office back in 2021 and was elected, and I've served Lansing for the last 4 years. It's been a joy most of the time just to do that, and I decided to sign on and do that again, and to be a voice for you, the taxpayers, and for the students. And And for the parents, I felt that that was badly needed to have a parent perspective. I think that a lot has been accomplished the last 4 years. We are ensuring parental rights. We are ensuring a focus on student achievement. And I am very aware of the tax burden on you, the taxpayers. And what I would like to focus on the next 4 years is trying to eliminate some of that burden, increasing student achievement, and also increasing safety for our teachers in the classroom, as that has been a big issue. And mostly, I'm there to be your voice. I'm there to represent you. You're who funds our schools, your money is what supports us, and you deserve a voice. Over 50% of your taxes go to these public schools. And whether you are retired and don't have kids in school anymore, whether you homeschool, or whether your kids attend public school, we all have a vested interest in that. Over 80% of our youth attend public schools, and we need that to be the best education that we can have for our students and our community. So other than that, I'm always available. My email and Facebook and my phone number is all on Facebook. I encourage you to reach out. There's a lot of stories out there. I'd say probably only about half of that is true. But I'm happy to meet with you in person. I'm happy to talk with you on the phone or to answer text messages. Just please get in touch with me with any questions. And like I said, right now, even if I'm not elected, I'm here to serve you until January. So feel free to contact me.
Well, good evening. And first off, thanks very much to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. And thanks to everybody that are present today so you can hear the differing views of each of the candidates. Now, my name is Greg Penfield, and I'm running for USD 469 Board of Education because our schools deserve competent, nonpartisan leadership and people who are focused on solutions. I'm a leader who will listen, who will ask real questions, and I'm going to solve problems in a way that strengthens our entire community. And I've chosen Lansing because I served for 30 years in my profession in the military. Twice we were stationed here in the Fort Leavenworth, Lansing area, and it was a conscious decision when we retired to live in this amazing community. Our daughter went to Lansing High School, great education. She moved on, and both my son and daughter went on to college and got for their graduate degree. My son and daughter-in-law and the two grandchildren live locally. They live in Leavenworth, and our daughter's attending grad school in the Kansas City area. So for my wife and me, it was an easy choice to live here, and we benefited greatly by the education that our daughter obtained through the Lansing School District. But I'm running also because I've witnessed at board meetings what is unacceptable. Our students, teachers, and community deserve better than personal attacks, social media drama, and dysfunction that make headlines for all the wrong reasons. I will bring relevant competencies and qualities to this position. 35 years of proven leadership and expertise, advanced degrees in education, leadership, management, and economics, with practical experience within my professional career using each of those degrees. A commitment to transparency, fiscal responsibility, and collaborative problem solving. And most importantly, someone who understands the difference between providing board governance and interfering with our professional educators. Our district purpose is clear. Prepare every student for success. Everything else is a distraction. Lansing deserves board members who will show up, do the hard work, and serve in the position with dignity that it deserves. I am that leader, and I thank you for this moment.
Hello again, I'm Jeff Bollin again. Like I said, I'd like to thank you guys for hosting this as well, and it is a really good turnout. It's good to see. A little bit about myself, like Amy, I'm an incumbent member. I'm running for my second term. We moved to the Lansing School District in 2018 from the Easton School District. We were out looking for a better education and more challenges for our children. So we decided to settle on Lansing, and we've been extremely happy with the outcome of being here. My wife is a graduate of Lansing. Like I said, we moved in 2018. Both my kids are high schoolers right now. So a couple more years, they will be out of the school system. But over the last 4 years, it's really brightened my lens towards seeing that every kid is created equal. And even when my kids are out, I still feel like I can still be a great voice for every kid to make sure every kid's treated equally and everyone's getting the resources they need to succeed in school and then after school as well once they hit the workforce and in life in general. A little bit of my history, I graduated from Pleasant Ridge High School in 2000. From there, I went to North Central Kansas Technical College, where I got an associate's degree and a certificate with heavy equipment operations. I started with a local company, Lexico in Leavenworth here in June of 2001. And from there, I've had many roles. I was a equipment operator for them for 14 years. And then for the last 11 years, I've been in a management position. So I've had the experience from the ground up of doing the work and then also being a leader. And then now in the position I'm in, being a overall manager where I'm managing the budgets, making sure things are performed on time, under budget, and making sure that resources aren't stretched where they shouldn't be. I've also was a volunteer firefighter for 18 years where I served as department treasurer. So I've had experience with running the books as well with those aspects. And that is another aspect where it's taxpayer money being utilized. So you want to stretch every taxpayer's dollar as far as you can and get them the most money out of their dollar. Then I'm also a very active volunteer with 4-H. My kids have been in 4-H since they were seven. I also was a 4-H member from the time I was 7 until 18. So a lot of experience there. And I'm also the adult treasurer for the Leavenworth County Council there, helping the kids learn about the money and being able to manage it as well. So had a lot of roles on the board as well. I was a vice president for 1 year. I served as president for 2 years. I'm an active member of the facilities committee. I've been on that for 3 years. And that is where one of the passions to get me to run was with the maintenance. And I feel like we've made decent strides there. We have a vision. We just need to follow through with that vision and be able to get the outcome we need. And that's one reason why I want to run again, is to continue with what I started and help start to make sure that we get to the end point that we're looking for. So once again, thank you all for being here and looking forward to discussing anything with anyone one-on-one afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jackie Kennedy. I'm a proud parent of 2 Lansing graduates, and I'm running for position on the Lansing USD 469 Board of Education. I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting tonight and also to everyone who took time to come out this evening. I've been a member of the Lansing community since 2005, and I have a 20-year track record of giving back to the community that has provided great opportunities to my family. I've served as a volunteer in the elementary, middle, and high school on committees like site councils, fine arts fair, OpGrad, Breakfast with Santa, 8th grade celebration, and others. I've been a Girl Scout leader. I've graduated from Lansing's Citizens Academy, and I'm a 10-year volunteer at the Lansing Correctional Facility. I earned my bachelor's degree from Appalachian State University with a major in English and a minor in psychology. I earned my master's degree from East Carolina University and with a degree in substance abuse counseling and rehabilitation counseling. I pride myself in my ability to work with others to identify problems and find solutions that work for everyone. I believe my experience and education make me a good fit for the work of a Board of Education. I'm hoping my answers tonight help me earn your vote. You'll notice I have all of my answers written down tonight to help me stay on track. Public speaking is not my forte, and this helps me make sure I express to you everything I want you to know and keep me within our time budget. Thank you.
Hi, this is Amy McGeorge, and I want to thank everyone who's come out tonight. I know this is a real commitment on your time. So hopefully we can answer all of your questions to your satisfaction. I have been in this district since 2012. Unfortunately, none of my children did graduate here, but they did graduate from Kansas schools. My very first job coming out of college was teaching in the prison system. And I was handed an empty room and a budget. And I had to sit there and figure out how to order everything within this budget. Pencils, paper, desks. So I'm very familiar with starting from scratch and then having to figure it all out. My second major teaching job was at Allen County Community College, south of Burlingame, their outreach, where I was their outreach coordinator. Again, here's your budget. Now go make sure everybody stays within it. And I had to coordinate with all of these other teachers and make sure that we were all trying to meet the same standards. I'd worked on North Central accreditation teams as a volunteer. I was, for a few years, I was the science club teacher, and we did all of those outside activities. So I've been very aware of what the students need as far as boots on the ground. I've taught 17 years in a variety of different places: community college, high school, the prison system. And I've seen students through that entire variety of their careers, of their life. And the one thing that I learned that meant more to me and more to them, I hope, than anything was listening. If I don't understand the problem the way you see it, how am I ever going to address it the way you need it addressed? If I don't understand the question and I don't look around and ask for clarification, how am I ever going to get it? So one of the things I really want to bring to this position, to this table, is the ability to listen to you as the community, to listen to the students, to listen to the teachers, and try to find a way that we can support the entire community and really build a future for all of us. Because I know what kind of future I want to live in, but what kind of future do you want? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if you'd hold on to the mic, Amy, and start us as we start our 4 questions. Question number 1, the school district has a $50 million deferred maintenance backlog. $30 million of that backlog is urgently needed for repair and replacement. If elected to the Board of Education, what actions will you take and what initiatives will you support to A, address the 15 years of deferred maintenance, and B, avoid repetition of this problem? Amy, would you please start?
Well, that's a really tough one without actually having a chance to see the budget hands-on and see exactly what they're describing. Obviously, we need to take a look at priorities and determine which are the most critical. And again, listen to the community. What do you think are the most critical? I mean, I can sit here and look at it and make my decisions for me, but you as the parents and the community know where it is you think your tax dollars need to be appointed, which buildings and which facilities you think need the most recent, current, desperate updates. So that's where I would have to start, is what is it that you think needs done? And then take a look at, as we're saying, the budget and what's realistic. And then have that communication, have a dialogue, not just say, this is what needs to be done. What do you think needs to be done? What do we think can be done? And then work together.
Okay. Our insurance premiums have skyrocketed, in part due to our deferred maintenance problems. So we're not saving money by avoiding repairs. I can't speak for the reasons we've gone this long without taking care of these maintenance issues, but I can recognize that we have reached a point where we're wasting money by avoiding solutions. I've spoken at the annual tax meetings to advocate for a flat tax, keeping the mills the same to generate needed money to move our district forward, which aligns with what our superintendent has recommended to prevent roller coaster changes in what taxpayers are expected to pay each year. Our reserves fund should be in the $3 to $6 million range, and it's been below $1 million for the past few years. That's a lot of holding our breath and crossing our fingers that our systems hold. So I fully support efforts to build the reserves that are used to address maintenance issues. A couple years ago, our Board of Education put together a committee to work with community members to share the maintenance issues the district is facing and find out what the priorities are for fixing those issues. One thing that was repeated was the need for a maintenance plan that prevents the problems from becoming so prodigious. The key to a good maintenance plan will be to have our major systems like boilers and roofs at a baseline of acceptable performance and a reserve fund that allows for the regular upkeep expenses on a schedule.
Okay, since we are in football season, I'm going to start out with an analogy so you can all kind of understand. I'm going to say it's offense versus defense. Currently, the board, the school district, we're playing defense. We don't have the funding in our capital outlay to be able to address the major needs we have at the times that they need to be done. So right now we're on defense. We are trying to keep things going as long as they possibly can, patching roofs, keeping boilers going, doing whatever we can to get the longevity out of those units until we can afford to pay for them. Now, with that, there are many options. There's a few options you can look into. We have discussed loans, lease to purchase options. We should be getting some numbers on some of that. I know it's been requested for the roofs specifically. So we can look at that and see which option between those two options, or possibly a bond or saving the money, which option is going to stretch your dollar, the taxpayer, the most? You know, are you going to get more bang for your dollar at a bond, at a lease to purchase option, or by saving long term? So with that, the capital budget, the issue with that is the salaries that are being pulled out of capital right now. We've pulled some of those salaries out, and that is a main priority, is to get those salaries pulled out of capital outlay so all those dollars can be spent toward maintenance issues. That is the number one goal that we need to address, and we are actively working to do that. Once we do that, then we can address a few more of those issues. However, until we get these big items addressed, a very responsible long-term plan that we can actually follow cannot be very specific until we have some of those items replaced to where we can get a lifespan to be able to continue. I beat the stop sign.
Yeah, the $55 million maintenance backlog is real, and the $30 million in urgent deferred maintenance alone requires immediate attention to address our aging infrastructure. High-quality education requires an environment conducive to learning, and that includes structurally sound buildings, roofs, and functional climate control systems. We need to stop discussing how we got here and start solving the problem. No more pushing this issue to the future. First, full transparency. Within 60 days, I'll push for an update of all deferred maintenance categorized by priority of urgency and safety. I've seen the list, and I've already started doing my own calculation on that. The community deserves to know exactly what's broken and what risk we're managing right now. Second, honest and open town hall engagements. Town halls where we present viable options with a definable risk and a real cost. Many of the points that Jeff brought up just a moment ago. No sugarcoating, no hiding the cost. Just the ground truth. Third, funding solutions that spread the burden responsibly, structured with clear accountability, competitive bidding, and citizen oversight, because the community gets to decide. The saying goes, you can pay now or pay later, but when you pay later, you also pay more. A prime example of the roof repairs alone for the district, estimated 2 years ago, was $6 million. Now it's $6.8 million. And that $800,000 increase is purely because of inaction. We need a mandatory annual funding for those capital improvements. Industry standard is 2 to 4% of the facility replacement value. We need to manage capital outlay funding to ensure every dollar goes towards maintenance. Again, personnel cost out of that fund. And this necessity requires leadership willing to make the tough decisions now, rather than leaving bigger problems for future taxpayers and boards. That's the kind of leadership that I'll provide on this board.
Thank you.
Since 2005, our district has seen student growth of about 18% and teacher growth 28%. That's reasonable. But at the same time, we've seen administration and management grow by 170%. This is not reasonable, especially now as enrollment is dropping. This is where cuts need to be made. It's not feasible when enrollment and funding decline to shift that burden onto you, the taxpayers. Past leadership has failed to budget for maintenance, and now the debt service through bonds has already risen 224%. And some of my fellow candidates, their solution is to add yet more bond debt. Our community has been surveyed, and they do not support a bond, yet some board members continue to push for one, all the while raising your property taxes each year. Our focus must be on student achievement. More money does not equal higher achievement. In fact, since 2016, funding has surpassed inflation every year, yet student achievement has declined. That's why I voted against adding new administration positions and spending that doesn't directly affect student success and immediate safety needs. We must carefully evaluate spending in areas like administration, digital curriculum, and even SPED, while still providing every legally required service. An efficiency audit comparing our district to similar districts could show where we overspend, where services are duplicated, and where savings can be made without hurting classrooms. I just attended a board member conference focusing on budgets, and for about $7,000, a district our size could fund an efficiency audit that identifies millions in savings long term. This is common sense. It needs to happen now. While we have a yearly audit, that is getting you from point A to point B. It doesn't tell you what the efficiency of your spending is. There are ways to cut the budget and while still keeping quality teachers and prioritizing students. That's why I support not transferring this burden to you, the taxpayers, who already pay over 50% of your property taxes to the school district. The taxpayers are telling us that they have had enough, and I agree. Time to do more with less.
Thank you. Question number 2. As a board member, what is your role in the strategic management of the district, and what are the limits on board actions in dealing with the daily functions of the schools and classrooms? Greg, would you start, please?
So a school board has 3 core jobs: set policy, hire and evaluate the superintendent, and ensure fiscal accountability. Board members should not be micromanaging daily administrative operations, telling our teachers how to teach the curriculum and manage their classrooms, or create a hostile work environment through public attacks on the very professionals who educate our kids. That's not governance, that's dysfunction. 35 years of experience in my chosen profession has taught me the difference between leadership and micromanagement. Our district superintendent and school principals have the education, training, and experience to run the schools. The board must ensure the superintendent and district leaders have the resources, clear direction, and support to succeed. The board must also support the superintendent and respect his professional judgment and recommendations on proposed policies, actions, and implementation of board guidance. The superintendent deserves the board's support and respect, not rhetoric that undermines his position or makes evaluative public comments. But here's the key difference. Trust doesn't mean rubber stamping everything. I trust professionals to do their job, but in turn, I expect positive results that are commensurate with the board goals. I'll ask tough questions, demand transparent data on the student outcomes, and hold leadership accountable. That's professional oversight. Our board needs to relearn that distinction. The policy and oversight within our purview. Daily interference, no.
Please.
Okay, the main objective of the board is to oversee the superintendent. With that, the board will also make and set policy, which is what the superintendent should be following in his everyday role. Another main thing for the board is to make sure that the staff and students have all the resources they need to succeed. The board as a whole, we shouldn't be dealing with the day-to-day issues. The day-to-day issues are dealt with through the superintendent. That's the reason that he is there. Yes, there are times that day-to-day issues may come to the board, but that is when the superintendent would request it, and we would have to take board action at his discretion. As a board, we should be looking at the school district from a 30,000 feet view. We should be looking at what's going on day to day, but in reality, we need to be looking in the future to make sure that we have a plan in place to make sure that everything is funded, buildings are maintained, staff is in place and everything is there for the future, so we're not caught scrambling at the end when we don't have what we need. Thank you.
The Board of Education is an elected body chosen to represent the values and priorities of our community. While the superintendent is responsible for the day-to-day operations of our schools, the board's role is to set clear goals for the district and to hold the superintendent accountable for achieving them. Our responsibility is not to manage classrooms or offices, but to make sure the district is moving in the direction our community expects. We do this by evaluating the superintendent's performance across key areas: student academic success, staff recruitment, retention, pay, and working conditions, the safety and conditions of our facilities, and the long-term fiscal health of our district. The superintendent brings the educational expertise and experience to manage operations. The board, as a volunteer body elected by the community, provides oversight to ensure that that expertise is directed toward meeting the goals and values of the people we serve.
The role of the board is oversight and evaluation, in this case, of not the teachers, not the students, but the entire district through the superintendent, which means that if we've hired a superintendent, we need to give them our support, because if we have no confidence, then we need to move on. And as long as we are going to provide that support, we need to do it publicly and consistently. Our job is not to micromanage a teacher, but to encourage them, to inspire them, to know that someone has their back, that someone is going to speak for them to the community when necessary. But other than that, let the teachers teach. Let them feel supported and safe, just like we want our students to feel supported and safe. That is critical for learning and teaching. If you don't have those, you don't have opportunity, you can't learn, you can't teach. Thank you.
Please pass it down to Amy.
As a board member, I was elected to represent the people, not the administration. My responsibility is to the taxpayers, parents, teachers, and students of this community. Some training programs suggest that board members should act like watchtowers, only hiring the superintendent and then stepping back, but that is not what state law says. Our duties are clearly written in statute. We are responsible for approving curriculum, conducting building needs assessments, approving budgets, ensuring student achievement, protecting both student and teacher safety. We hire and sometimes fire employees, including the superintendent, and that is accountability. Too often, board seats have been influenced by union endorsements. I don't believe it serves taxpayers for a group that it negotiates contracts at one point during the year with the board to also recruit and endorse candidates. That is why I will not attend those forums or seek those endorsements. I was elected to represent you, not special interest. I am not the kind of board member who will simply rubber stamp decisions. I spend hours reviewing purchases, hires, policies, because that is the job that I signed up for. I talk to parents, to teachers, to other districts, to constituents, and I consider all voices before I vote. If you want a board member who won't ask questions, who won't listen, who won't do their homework, then I'm not your candidate. But if you want someone who will meet with teachers when they feel unsafe, who will listen to parents when they're struggling, and who will always put students first, then I am the candidate for you. I took an oath when I took office to uphold a Constitution, and I take that very seriously, and I will keep working tirelessly to represent you, who are my constituents.
Thank you. Question number 3, and I asked Jeff to start us off. School boards are one of 5 taxing entities that affect taxpayers' wallets. Federal, state, county, and cities being the other 4. What are your budget priorities for both generating income and controlling expenses? Will your priorities ensure that the district can A, recruit and retain talented, committed faculty and staff, B, ensure students get a quality education in a safe and supportive environment? In answering this question, please share your opinion about RHID development projects. Jeff, would you say?
We only get 2 minutes for that one, right?
Yes. There's a test in your conciseness.
Okay. So the school district really only has two, you could look at it as three ways of generating income. Your student count, every kid you have in the district brings in money, your mill levy adjustment, or you can make cuts. That's, in reality, the only three ways to generate money. So as we've tried to do, we've tried to generate students. We've tried to recruit from kindergarten and try to build our classrooms as full as we can to generate dollars there. The mill levy, yes, we've went above revenue neutral, but we've consistently tried to keep it as flat as possible because, as I've outlined earlier, we are trying to pull some funds from capital, from salary, so we can build that back up. And we also are trying to build our board goal of reserves. Priorities for that budget, in my opinion, are safety, student or staff retention, and maintenance. To be able to stretch that dollar as far as we can in the maintenance issue, I discussed that earlier on, and also with the safety, we need to try to make our students and staff as safe as possible with the budget that we currently have while we're also fixing everything else. We've done an excellent job in our retention, recruiting and retention. We've consistently raised staff salaries to try to be more competitive with the other districts around us, and also trying to keep in mind that their cost of living is going up just as much as everyone else's. Moving to the RHID, there's a lot of differing opinions out there, and my opinion may differ day to day. Currently, it is a good tool to help get families into the district. If you look at it in one aspect, it'll lower the purchase price for that family. In aspect, it really is just pushing the dollar farther down the road, but they're not considering getting a loan for that amount, so their monthly payment is going to be cheaper, but I run out of time. Which way are we going?
That one. So, yes, please.
Okay, as Jeff said, there's limited ways for districts to generate income. We don't sell a product that we can raise the price of. Our product is preparing students to succeed as citizens, workers, and leaders. Most of our funding comes from federal, state, and local taxes, with some cost sharing through fees for things like transportation, meals, and extracurriculars. Because every tax dollar matters, my priority would be to use funds as efficiently as possible while protecting the quality of education in our classrooms, the safety of every person in our buildings, and the career satisfaction that keeps our talented staff in Lansing. One idea that I would like to explore would be working with a professional grant writer or grant writing service in some capacity. Our district has benefited from grants in the past, but identifying opportunities and preparing competitive proposals takes significant time and expertise. A dedicated professional could help us bring in outside funding to improve programs and facilities without adding new burdens on local taxpayers. As far as RHID is concerned, each project needs to be considered on its own merits. The Board of Education must put the school district first in its decision-making process, but give consideration to the goals of our community as a whole. The Board of Education and City Council have joint meetings a couple of times each year, and which is a great way to have each of the governing bodies discuss their goals and plans and how to move both our district and our community forward.
Budgeting is always a really big problem and a really big issue. I know that when I was teaching and we would have a budget, and I learned how to be very creative with my budgets. I could do an entire chemistry class with a few beakers and sugar. So there are really creative ways that things can be done if people are willing to look for them, listen to the teachers, listen to the students. They have creative ideas. They have ways they could do fundraising. The grants sound amazing. That's something that we did all the time when I was in the sciences. Grants are huge, but again, finding them is very difficult. Other than that, it's going to be a constant battle, and we know this. To say that there's any easy answer is impossible. But we have to at least take a look at what we have and what we can do with it and figure that this is our future. How much are you willing to invest in your future? I don't mind paying my taxes. Do I like watching them go up? No. Is that because of the school district? No, it's because of the houses around me. Has nothing to do with the school district. But I don't mind paying because I know that this is one of the best school districts I've seen in Kansas, and I've seen quite a few. And I've worked in ones that were not the best and that were a challenge just to get anything accomplished. So again, what is the most important thing to the community as far as the budgeting? What is it that you think needs to be done? If we're not responsive to you, then we're not responsive to the community.
Back down to Amy, please.
It's a very important question. Most people, well, at least you get their tax bill, don't realize that over half of your property taxes go to your local school district, and that's a heavy burden, and it's one that I take very seriously, the responsibility of our decisions. We need to trim the budget, just like you're doing at home, not raise taxes. That means taking a hard look at administration cost. It means reviewing curriculum spending. It means going beyond a basic audit to find waste, duplication, in areas that don't impact student achievement. Our role is not to grow the district. Our role is education and increasing student achievement. We should be asking families, why are you leaving? I know several who withdrew their children because curriculum they felt wasn't necessary to meet state standards. Parents deserve to be heard, not pushed aside in their children's education. Now, regarding RHID, I researched it for hours, and we were told that property valuations would stay flat until the abatement ended, meaning more funding for the district. That turned out to be false. I confirmed it with KSDE and shared it with the board. Here's the truth. Taxpayers are hurting, yet some on this board and my opponents want to raise taxes year after year, push a bond, and divert tax dollars to developers. My constituents overwhelmingly opposed RHID. I listened to them, and I voted against it. And at the end of the day, I was elected to be your voice. Pardon me. And I will keep voting to protect you, the taxpayer, support parents, and focus every dollar on what matters most, student achievement.
Craig, please.
School budgets require balancing competing requirements within the resources we're provided by the community. Three key priorities are educational facilities, student services, and competitive teacher compensation. But we also need sustained adequate state funding, and the board must advocate through our state representatives and senators for fair school finance formulas. Our district also started a virtual school model to support underserved students in our community, and this initiative is generating revenue for the district, a very creative and innovative idea. We must also seek additional grant opportunities to include our eligibility for grants related to the 45% poverty level evident in our elementary school. But we also must be strategic about our budget priorities, infrastructure investments, but you also have to acknowledge rising cost. A revenue neutral approach that doesn't account for rising cost isn't a neutral approach and incurs deficit spending. We need a balanced budget, but that does not mean a blank check because we are the fiscal stewards. Every budget dollar should pass the very first test. Does it align with our strategic goals? And does it support student learning? And if the answer is yes, whether through classroom services and resources, teacher compensation, or our buildings, the answer is yes. If it's administrative expansion or it's not aligned to our goals, absolutely not. And I do support competitive compensation for our teachers, as we've talked before, because they're the very foundation and bedrock to deliver the education to our students. On the RHID question, it alludes to why the board must have analyzed and evaluate every issue on its own merits. The RHID approach may not be the best solution for our district or our community our size, because it's still a heavy reliance on property tax for our homeowners. I did not support the Riverbend RHID because the disproportionate tax revenue share to the developer over 20 years was unfavorable to this community. And further, when you have that kind of impact early on, it also impacts district resources. Okay. I hit the, so now you know what it sounds like. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, Jackie, start. Question number 4. Based on what we read in the press, it appears that this Board of Education has a reputation for being polarized and acrimonious. Whether true or not, what will you do personally to help the board earn a reputation of professionalism, collaboration, and camaraderie? Jackie, please start us.
This is a great question. I do believe the board has become polarized, and that's not healthy for our schools or our community. At the same time, every member on the board was elected by the people, and that deserves respect. We owe it to our voters and our students to listen to one another and look for common ground, even on difficult issues, and there have been many. I believe a professional board must function as a single body. We may disagree in discussion, but once a decision is made, the board should move forward together. If elected, I will approach my colleagues with respect, present my positions based on facts, and remain open to improving my ideas through their perspectives. That kind of collaboration leads to stronger outcomes for students, staff, and the entire community.
For my part, I consider myself a team player. In every role that I have had throughout my life, I want to see the team succeed, not just myself. I don't want to put myself above anybody else. I want to make sure that we are in as strong of an agreement as we can be, whether I was teaching in the classroom or whether my current job where I work for Oracle and I have really angry people calling up and they want their computers working and they want them working now. And there my role is, you are safe here. No matter what's going wrong in your life out there, it is my job to help you and make you feel safe here. And that's something I really want to bring to something like that for the school board. It needs to be a place where ideas can be expressed as honestly as they need to be. But when the day is done, we agree and we are respectful about it. And we feel safe having those discussions with each other and with the community.
Our community is divided politically, just like our country. And it should be no surprise that our school board reflects that too. We're elected to represent our constituents, and that means there will be different voices and different votes. Now, of course, there are times when a 7-0 vote makes sense, but if every single issue always passes 7-0, that's a problem. Because how often do you agree with everyone around you on every issue? Probably not very often. The key is we must follow state statute, maintain decorum in meetings, and allow every board member a voice. I don't always have to agree with another board member, but they deserve the right to represent their constituents. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, leadership has tried to limit that. Some board members were prevented from adding items to agendas, even though under Kansas open meetings law, that's the only time that the board has to discuss items. That is wrong. Consent items have been used to block debate, and no single board member should ever have more power than another. Through a Quora request, I even found emails where board members tried to control myself and others behind the scenes. That is not leadership, that's silencing. Debate is not the problem. Disagreement is not the problem. The problem is when leadership tries to suppress voices and control the narrative instead of respecting the process. The solution is simple. Proper leadership, respect for all board members. I suggest using Robert's Rule of Orders like most boards do across the country. And yes, sometimes meetings might run long, but that's our job. If serving a few extra hours is too much for someone, then maybe they shouldn't run. I don't care if the meetings take 5 hours because I was elected to serve and not rush through decisions. Imagine if your monthly job was condensed down to just 3 hours a month. You wouldn't have much time, would you? So I'm there to stay as long as needed and work with all board members. They should all be heard at each meeting.
Party foul. She was good. She was at a time. All right, so let's be direct. The current board rhetoric and dysfunction can be embarrassing to our community and damage our school's reputation. We can and must do better. I'll model the professional behavior we expect from all our leaders. That means respectful dialogue, even to disagreement. But we've got to focus on solutions rather than personal attacks. We got to maintain professional conduct at the school meetings and on the social media, and collaborative problem solving with the very superintendent and staff that we have. I support a code of conduct with real consequences. Being a board member is a privilege that comes with responsibility. Our board members must maintain professional standards. We succeed as a board through disciplined professional leadership. I will seek perspectives across the spectrum because I have to ensure I understand all relevant issues and factors for that. Board members can disagree with policy, and they should offer alternative. That's healthy. But we must disagree professionally, discuss the advantages and disadvantages for each issue, vote on the merits, and move forward together once those decisions are made. And the entire board must own the decision, whether it's 6-1, 7-0, or 4-3. It doesn't matter. The alternative is to continue with the dysfunction we have now. I want to focus on our educational mission. We'll show respect towards the board, our superintendent, and our educational professionals, and keep personal conflicts and politics out of our board decisions. I've led through tough challenges, and our school board has tough challenges. The key is keeping everyone focused on what's important, and that's our students' success and their achievement. That's the leader I'll be.
I'll just start by saying, yes, our current board does have some differing of opinions, and I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a few things that I feel as a board, especially when you have a new board and new members come on, that could be very important and very beneficial to try to bring that board together and have a common vision. The first thing would be getting together and setting your own board goals. When you have the collaboration of all 7 board members coming together and discussing and narrowing down 3 to 4 bullet board goals while you are in office, that really can help give everyone the same vision on the board and help you work together, in my opinion. Another big item would be a board self-evaluation. Once a year, I feel the board should come together, all 7 members, and evaluate yourselves, both individually and as board members, and reflect back on how you feel like you did leading the district the previous year. And for me, I would say that most likely there's always going to be something that we can improve on, whether it be individually or as a board. And if you can come together and come to that realization of what needs to be improved upon to get to the goals of the district, then I feel like that would really help the board come together when you're all thinking, have the same vision toward the end. If reelected, I would like to also try to push for trying to really identify each member's strengths, because as board members, we're all different. We all have different careers. We've all led different lives. We all have different paths in the future. But if we can identify every member's strength, then we can utilize those members in different decision making, because someone else's strengths might be one of my weaknesses. Well, if we can utilize those members in their most respected strength, then I think that would also help.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll open up the floor to your questions. Again, please ask questions that are to the entire board of candidates and get directly to the question. Yes, ma'am.
So while these people act like there's not a political issue in our community, and they think that they can remain neutral and walk down the party line, like right in the middle, the problem I'm seeing in this community is that I've seen people think that it's okay to keep secrets with children that have gender dysphoria issues. And I want to know where these candidates stand with gender dysphoria and how they're going to make sure that those parents are notified as well they not.
Candidates, did you all understand the question? Okay. Amy, or excuse me, Jackie,
Dysphoria, I want to know where these candidates stand. Are they going to keep secrets with the children, or are they going to notify their parents that they're having these gender dysphoria issues?
Thank you. Jackie.
When a school board works well, when a school district works well, our parents, our teachers, our students communicate with each other. We shouldn't be keeping secrets from anyone. I don't know if she's referring to comments, sarcastic comments she's seen of mine on Facebook. But no, we don't keep secrets. They weren't.
Okay, please, ma'am, let her answer.
Yeah, we don't keep secrets. We should be working together. This is a team effort, community effort, and no, we don't keep secrets.
Amy. Amy. Go ahead, please.
This one?
Yeah,
Okay.
please, go ahead.
So I don't feel that it's right to keep secrets. I feel like parents should be notified. However, I do feel like we need to make sure that the situation is safe, that there is not an issue at home before the notification process. And I know this has been addressed before, and we've put a few things in place with the counselors. And yeah.
I think it's pretty clear that no secrets between the parents, but again, you have to put the safeguards in with the children as well. And that's why we have professional counselors who have the education and training to make that assessment and then provide that recommendation to our leadership within the schools, and they can bring it forward. But at the end of the day, the parents have the right to understand what's going on with their children. But again, it has to be done in a particular manner that safeguards the safety of that student as well. You just can't leave them out.
The parents' rights do not end when they drop their child at the school door. When I first came on and came into office, I was notified by staff and I was sent documentation, emails that were being sent out to the entire staff that teacher conferences were coming up, and to remember to keep those social transitioning students' secrets from their parents at those teacher conferences. This was documented. The board saw it, the staff saw it. Those secrets were being kept. I initiated a Parents' Bill of Rights, which in that, it included some items that were already enshrined in statute, but others like this, that no secrets would be kept from parents. Parents absolutely have the right, and kids should not be able to socially transition at school without a parental permission, and that's why I also later introduced a gender policy, which requires a parental notification and permission, and it also doesn't compel staff to use those preferred pronouns because that violates the Constitution. That was settled in case law in Kansas. So it was very important to get those things in place. And of course, we're all mandatory reporters. So if there's ever any situation where you think a student is not safe at home, staff could report that family to DCF and let them investigate. That shouldn't curtail policy. But I find it interesting that there is support on the panel now for this when the policy was put up for a vote. A current board member voted against that gender policy. And also some of the at least one of the members here that is running spoke out against that. So absolutely no secrets for parents. Parents have the ultimate constitutional right to direct the upbringing and education of their children, and that doesn't stop at the school door.
Please pass it back down here for Amy.
That question lies at the heart of safety and allowing the students to feel safe in the classroom and to be themselves. Should the parents be allowed to have no secrets with their children at school? None, not a single one. That's a very tough question, and that's why the counselors are critical. And why seeing so many school districts get rid of counseling is just heartbreaking, because the counselor's job is to know the student and whether it is safe for that student to tell their parents. And it's a really tough choice. So when it comes to the safety of the student, which are you going to choose? The student or the parent that might then beat the child when they come home? I was a teacher. I had to make those tough calls. Have you had to make those tough calls? No. Have you had to make that tough call? I'm about to cry about this because I have had to make that tough call. I've been on the other side. It's not a theoretical question. It's that student's life. It's their safety.
Please, this is not a
Let me
debate.
speak, please. It's that student's life. It's their safety. If it is the law, then we will do it. But we will do it with respect and carefully, not just in some student-teacher council meeting. This has to be done right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
With the board, the candidates have talked about parents' rights. Do students have any rights? If you're 16 or 17, 14, 15, do they have any rights?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Amy, would you start us?
That's the question. Do they have rights?
In my view, they do. Coming from being a teacher, where again, I had to make these tough calls. I had to sit across from parents and decide just what I was going to tell them. Was this student disruptive in my class, or did I see potential and I wanted to focus on that? Those students should have rights, especially once they hit into the high school years. They are forming the person they are going to become. And they should have some decisions of their own. As I say, if it is the legal decision that they have to be told, then we have to find the right way to do it. But those are people that we are training to become individuals who must be able to make their own choices, and that is one of the primary roles of the upper grades, is teaching them how to make those choices for the rest of their life.
Our students absolutely have rights. And I remember when we were interviewing, when the district was interviewing superintendent candidates, I asked the superintendent about student rights just as our time was ending. So I believe that when we work together, when we have parents, when we have teachers and students that are open with each other and honest, then everyone's rights can be respected. There's no reason to believe that a student wouldn't have rights to how they behave in school. Yes, students have rights.
It's like Jackie said, I also believe students do have rights. Students have the right every day when they go into school, whether or not they're going to do their homework. They have the right every day, whether they're going to eat school lunch. There's a lot of different rights that they do have. However, when it comes down to if they choose to go to school or not, that's a student's right until the parents are forcing them to go, or as truancy, because they don't show up to school. So yes, I would say in the buildings, the students do have rights, but also they do have limited rights also.
Of course, students have rights, and so for some of the reasons you chose. And they also have a code of conduct that they have to adhere to. So every day they get to make the decision whether to adhere to those code of conduct or not. And there are consequences associated with that, which is part of what we do when we prepare students for life after high school. Because it's not just about education, it's about their emotional growth and their athletic growth or their artistic growth. It's more than just academics. So they do have rights, and they have responsibilities that go along with those rights. And there are legal distinctions, though, and some of the board policy lays it out pretty clearly of what those legal rights and the parameters of which those are. So we have to look at the legal distinction and what they're afforded the ability to do from a legal standpoint. They have the code of conduct to which they must adhere to or make personal choices. But at the end of the day, the students absolutely have right. And I'm going to expand a little bit because I still haven't got my buzzer. I'm still good. That not only do they have those rights, but those rights exceed. They also have the responsibility because those are individual rights, but those rights cannot permeate against somebody else and become outside of what their personal choice. Fine, it has an impact on another student. Now you're outside of, and you don't have the right to do that. So you have to understand the distinction. But what is your right, and what are the rights of other individuals as well?
I think what happens sometimes is we conflate the issues, and they obviously have maintained, there's been court cases, First Amendment rights, for instance, regarding their dress. They're allowed to have certain things on their shirts or not, or that could be usurped. But when it comes down to other items, minor students are just that. They're minors, and their parents are responsible for them. They're responsible for their safety. They're responsible for their education. They're responsible when they're going through issues. I personally met parents who were students that had socially transitioned at school, and they were not notified. I met a mother who was not notified. This was going on for some time. This was in California, where their laws are different than us. And that child, because she was not affirmed, was taken away from that parent. And that child, after she went through some of the transition treatment without parental approval, ended up unhappy with that and ended up committing suicide. Another parent that I met, their daughter attempted suicide, and the parents were never notified that they were struggling with this. Their life is one of the most important thing that we need to protect while they're at school. And issues like this is no different. If your child had an issue with grades, if they were suspended, if they had discipline issues, if they were in a fight, you wouldn't expect to tell the student, oh, it's your right for us not to tell the parents, because of course they wouldn't want their parents to know, right? But their parents deserve to know. And this is no different. They absolutely deserve that right to be aware of what's going on with their child until they reach the age of 18, as far as that goes with this gender policy. And I fully support that. I won't back down from it.
I have a question submitted here. Let me ask you quickly. If a teacher does not report child abuse where they have the knowledge that the abuse is happening and it comes to light, should that teacher be allowed to retain their job? Amy, since you've got it, would you start, please?
Can you repeat that?
The teacher doesn't report child abuse. It comes to light. Child abuse was happening. The teacher knew about it. Should that teacher retain their job?
Well, in my opinion, no, they should not, because they are mandatory reporters. But just want to make this clear that as a board member, I'm one of 7. So even if that was the situation and it was clear that they did not follow, and they are a mandatory reporter and that child was put at risk, then my opinion, if that all panned out, would be that they should lose their job. But I'm one of 7. We would meet, and what happens is you meet an executive session, you go over everything with each other, and you come to that conclusion amongst a board of 7. And for instance, in our neighboring district, that didn't happen. And but I know that there were some members that thought that should. So in the end, it comes down to the board, and that's why these elections are so important. But I definitely think the safety of the students come first. And if the teacher did not follow through with that, then I would agree that termination should be the next step.
Student safety is primary. That's number one. First, so if a teacher doesn't report that child abuse, she is that teacher, not person, teacher is a mandatory reporter. But again, we have a process to go through because again, there are assertions made and you have to just determine the relevant facts. So again, you have to go through as a board and look at everything and make sure that you understand the entirety of the situation and not just looking at a particular one-side perspective. But once you ascertain that those facts are in place and that was in fact the act that got committed, the board does have to make that decision that the teacher no longer meets the requirements and the conduct that they're expected within their contract. And unfortunately, we will follow those particular policies, and I think the teacher would be removed, hypothetically, because it's not a fact right now.
I believe if this came to light, then the first thing to do would be the teacher needs to go on leave, and then there's going to be an investigation take place. And to blanket say that every teacher should lose their job, I can't personally say that because every circumstance is different, and there's always more than one side of what we're going to hear first. So once we get the investigation and get the findings of that investigation, if the details do warrant termination, then I would totally support that.
Assuming that due process has happened, because teachers are entitled to due process, if it is determined that a mandatory reporter did not report, I can't imagine that teacher or staff member wouldn't lose their job. If you're a mandatory reporter, you've gone through the process, and it's been determined that you didn't do what you are contractually obligated to do, then the natural consequence would be termination.
I think initially you'd really have to pay attention to that burden of proof, like they're talking about. There really needs to be a good investigation. There's a difference between having a strong suspicion and nothing to back it up. You just know with your gut the way the child's acting, the way they come in. You know that they're probably being abused, but you don't have any proof. Then you're making accusations that you can't back up. Now, once the burden of proof has been established, again, it's a little tricky, and definitely they're going on probation. No question about that. Are they summarily fired? I would suppose a lot of that has to do with the rules already on the books for the local school district. If that's on the books that they're summarily fired, okay. But otherwise, definitely probation would be the first step at the very least. And then once you've got that and they're under more of a microscope of observation, then you can make the final determination.
Thank you. Next question. This gentleman in the back here, please.
This relates to the fiduciary responsibility on board, whether it be large staff schedule, certified staff schedule. We live in an inflationary rate period, and it's not going to go away. So every year, things are going to cost a little more. But in the number of times you can read frequently, board business suggesting they will fund us to reduce taxes when inflationary rates will cause all the expenses to pay. Is it unhealthy for the board to share that promise of lowering taxes when it's not possible?
Thank you, sir. Amy, would you start?
Yes, I think that ties back to the transparency issue, that you really need to be honest with the community about where the funding is going. I don't know all of the different means that this board has used to communicate this kind of information to the community, but there's got to be a more expansive way and a more inclusive way to make sure that everybody in the community is aware of where the money is going. And if you're going to have to raise it, you really need to be able to justify it.
Okay. As my expenses go up, as my property value goes up, as my property taxes go up, so goes up the cost to run a school district. Listening to the city council meeting when they were discussing their revenue neutral decision, the mayor said, well, of course we can't remain revenue neutral. Our prices, everything, our costs have gone up. So I think the goal is always to remain revenue neutral. I think it's not practical to assume that you can always remain revenue neutral. When we don't have reserves, when we have the deferred maintenance issues that we have, to suggest that we're just going to cut, I haven't heard what specifically we would cut in order to remain revenue neutral. So it has to be made year by year based on what the budget is. It's not fair to the community to just take less and then let those defer. We've got 15 years of deferred maintenance. So at some point, we've got to actually address those. It takes money.
So you asked if it kind of gives a false sense of truth. In my opinion, it does. Yes, you can go revenue neutral. You could probably do it for a couple of years, but eventually the lower income is going to catch up to you. So the false sense of security there is that, yes, your taxes might be low for 3 years, but eventually it's going to catch up to you because you've been kicking things down the road. And when it does finally catch up to you, instead of being able to maintain a flat rate with the current valuation process, you're looking back and you're looking at a point where, oh crap, we can't survive on this. We need to go above flat. And then that's where it all comes back in one big fail swoop. Thank you.
Yeah, this really comes back to the point I made earlier about a revenue approach that doesn't account for the rising costs is not truly a neutral approach because it is deficit spending. But I also think you need to be able to balance the budget. But I think our commitment then goes back to the community of what exactly are we spending that on? Everything has to be tied directly back to the strategic goals and what is supporting our kids' education. Administrative expansion or anything that's not aligned with those goals is not even part of the discussion because it doesn't meet our screening criteria. We have to use those tax dollars wisely and make smart investments and focus our dollars on the correct thing, as brought up, about the children's education. And at the end of the day, a balanced budget recognizes that revenue plus cost is what equals that balanced budget.
I agree with you that the statements made by some candidates that they won't raise taxes, and then when they're elected, they turn around and do so every time is very frustrating, as one of my fellow board members and candidates has done. But as far as revenue neutral, it was meant as a starting point. Of course, for 10 years, you can't stay revenue neutral. But what a board should have to do, or a county commission or a city council, is if they're going to go above that rate, to justify why. And that's a great starting point for that. And I do support that because of that. What has happened, though, and there is an inflation rate that we are all suffering under, right? But if you look over the past few years, including this last budget, that was the budget that was put forth, and the tax increase, even though a mill is flat, there still is more taxes collected if your valuations went up. So that's kind of a smoke and mirrors thing to say we want to keep the mill flat, because if your valuations went up, you're still paying more taxes, as you know. So this past year, the rate that we took in was double what inflation was. That's what this board approved. I voted against that. It wasn't maintaining inflation, but double. The year before that, it was 3 times. And a board member here, in fact, when valuations were running 10 to 12%, as we all know, a couple of years ago, they were even quoted during a work session as saying, we might as rake it all in while we can. Well, while I know we can't stay revenue neutral for years and years to come, we certainly should not take advantage of our taxpayers and rake it all when we can just because inflation, has risen those property values, or raised those property values. So again, it's a great starting point, and I understand at some point you could have to raise those, but there's no reason to go past an inflationary level. We also receive additional funding from the state based on increased inflation. And when your enrollment is declining, you need to cut expenses, not raise them, not raise taxes.
Last question.
Too often, school issues spill onto social media where candidates and their supporters attack each other instead of focusing on solutions. That behavior divides our community and sets a terrible example for students and young families. If you are elected, will you commit to being respectful online, and what will you do to stop fueling division through social media?
Greg, would you start, please?
So absolutely, I think that's one of the points I brought up tonight is that divisive type of rhetoric that's occurring on the social media forum, particularly among members who are serving on the board or line, is not supportive of what we need for a community. And you'll note that my campaign and on my Facebook and any responses always stay at a tone that is professional, above, and is never personal or goes after and is inflammatory or aggressive, because that's not leadership. Leadership is showing that there is a place of time and place to be able to have those discussions. And if we're going to have frank discussions that are going to go, that's executive session or in private. In a public forum, this is what we're talking about with the district's reputation. And so for my commitment that's why I support a board code of conduct. Just as much as we expect our teachers, faculty, staff, and our superintendent to adhere to those same behavioral, we should expect the board to do so as well. This isn't Congress where we get to pick and choose what we make laws and then not hold them accountable for ourselves. I told you it's a privilege to serve on the board, and it's a responsibility. And that responsibility includes your professional conduct, whether it's through the social media or the conduct inside the board of meetings as well. So I'm 100% behind eliminating that kind of rhetoric, particularly among us who are the leaders of this community, should I be elected.
please.
So I don't get involved in the social media stuff. I get on there and I'm mainly on Facebook to keep track of my family and everything that I don't get to see all the time. I'm more of a face-to-face, let's have a conversation person. And I feel like that is kind of a grassroots thing that we should get back to. Like being able to walk up to someone, shake their hand and have a conversation. And that's for everyone, starting at students to teachers to the admin to board members and all the community members. If we could all be able to have the courage to do that and be able to have a meaningful conversation with someone, even if our opinions differ, then I think that would be a major step in the right direction.
Social media is a tough place to be. Name calling is never acceptable. And just like I mentioned earlier, a school board functions as one body. So disagreements should be had in executive sessions. Once those executive sessions are over and the board comes out and votes, the whole board should be standing up for the decision of the board. It is one body. Once those decisions are made, they shouldn't be played out, explained, justified on social media why I did vote or did not vote in a particular way. Just kind of like a family. You know, I can have a disagreement with my sister, but if we're out and about, you're going to hear me supporting my sister. We'll fight it out at home. So heated discussions, disagreements in executive session, united front when you come out of the executive session and vote.
Agreed. Social media is not the place to be airing our differences. That is to be social. That is to be interactive. That is to connect, not to disconnect. I taught high school. I've lived with an entire classroom full of trolls where every second they're waiting to see if they can bait you, and I spend much of my energy diffusing the situation. So, no, my absolute goal in that scenario is to not engage. If someone goes there, let them go there, but I will not.
So usually what I do is I get on social media in the morning to see what has been said that I've done. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Most of the time it's not. So there has been pretty much a steady campaign since I took office to kind of give a narrative of what my views are, who's controlling me, who's pulling my strings, what the decisions are. And so I do use social media, and I think it can be a useful tool to state your true feelings, to state why you made a decision, to state what has happened at the meeting, to also showcase positive things that have happened with the district, to let you know what votes are coming up, items like that. I also offer to meet with individuals. I also put out my phone number, my email. I'm happy to meet with you. So I think it can be used in a positive way. There have been several negative things spread about me, shared on social media. I find it interesting that one candidate who runs one of those pages that has a lot of that information is saying that they're going to maintain social media decorum. But as far as the board member code of conduct, we do already have that in place. We put that into place a couple years ago. Now, it may not be what some people wish, but a local policy cannot trump state statute. It's very important to understand your role, and you cannot make a local policy to punish a board member for something you deem inappropriate, because that would usurp state statute. So although it's been stated they want a code of conduct with consequences, you also do not want to silence their free speech. You cannot silence their ability to represent their constituents. And if you don't like it, turn it off. That's what I do. Trust me, I don't listen to probably at least 80% of the negative. Often it's shown to me by someone else. So you just do what's right regardless.
Candidates, it's now time for your 1-minute closing statement. Greg, would you please start us?
So I believe that I offer a choice for the voters to provide professional, steady leadership to focus on what matters, and that's our students' education. I'm asking for your vote because our district employees and the students deserve that type of leadership. They need board members who are going to show up prepared to discuss options and solutions and not just continue to grandstand or treat people disrespectfully. We have to make decisions based on facts. And when you make assertions, you have to underpin those assertions with the evidence that's provided as part of it. We have significant maintenance backlogs, some real challenges for teacher recruitment and retention, and a reputation problem for the board. And these problems aren't going to solve themselves, and they need to be solved by more than just grandstanding. They require disciplined professional leadership and those willing to take on and have dialogue and discussion and not live on the periphery or the extremes. And there are opportunities as well because we do have an amazing school district, and too often we're too caught up in the rhetoric of what are the negatives, and we forget about the fact that we have some amazing educational professionals and students who are doing amazing things inside the school district and representing our community well.
Please stop. You had 1 minute.
Yeah, that's my, I was doing with the 2-minute rule, but it was
1 minute.
the first 1 minute. Mine's.
Please.
So I just want to start off by saying, if anyone has any questions, I think that I've had a proven voting track record that will indicate that I consistently try to do what's best for every student in the district and what's best for the district as a whole. I don't let anything outside reflect on my opinions and my votes, and I always try to take everything into effect. With that said, there's been some comments made tonight that when I ran last time, I said I wouldn't raise taxes. I never ran on saying I would never raise taxes. And also the comment has been made about me saying that I was going to rake it all in while we can. That comment was made, that same response a couple months ago, and I'm still waiting on the video from that because they were supposed to be finding that. And also, I just want everyone to be aware, as we talk about budget and cuts and everything else, we got to remember that not everywhere we cut money, that money cannot automatically be allocated somewhere else. The school district has a very specific funding formula, and it's funneled into specific areas.
Local elections are nonpartisan elections because your candidates are your neighbors, your friends, people that you go to church and the grocery store. You see them in the grocery store. At the end of the day, the election isn't about politics. It's about our students, our teachers, and our community's future. If I'm elected, I will focus on student achievement, staff support, safe schools, and fiscal responsibility. I will represent our community's values with respect, collaboration, and accountability. I believe in our public schools, and I believe in working together to make them even stronger. I ask for your vote, and I thank you for your commitment to our schools.
As a prior public school teacher, I believe very strongly in our public education. I have seen that we have some excellent board members that are already active and very knowledgeable. I hope to bring a different perspective that I haven't seen yet, and that is from someone who's been boots on the ground. I've been in the classroom. I've worked with the hard students. I've worked with the gifted students. I come from a family of teachers, and so I'm hoping to bring that perspective as well as the experiences that I've had during my teaching career. Thank you.
Thank you all for attending, and thank you to the Chamber for providing this venue. In the past 4 years, I feel like a lot has been accomplished, but there is much more to do. I've talked about this before, but we've enacted a Parents' Bill of Rights, classroom and library material policy, a gender policy to assure secrets are not kept from parents, that there will always be, even before it was state law, or if that should change, a separation of sports restrooms and locker rooms based on your biological sex. There is a strategic plan that we enacted, increased focus on student achievement during board meetings, and we provided a raise to teachers each year while still assuring parental rights are withheld and our focus on student achievement. I ask for 4 more years to continue what has been started and pledge to each of you to keep you, the parent, the taxpayer, in mind when regarding all decisions that I make, and of course the students. Thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me thank all the candidates for being here? Thank you all for coming this evening. I thank you for your civility. And next week, a week from today, we'll have our final candidate forum for the Water Board. I encourage you to come. A lot of important issues.